Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. This is a show about business and market culture in and around St. John's, Newfoundland. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew Ledrew, owner and operator at Engine Books, the province's fastest growing independent publisher of books. Thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. We are here today with Bronwynne Bridges of Bronwynne Bridges Photography, an amazing artist who graces the St. John's Farmers Market with her presence every now and again, more often than not, selling her photography, making new connections, networking, selling products based on her photography, like these adorable puzzles and prints and all of this wonderful stuff. If you haven't heard from her about her, shame on you. But Bronwynne Bridges Photography, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. All right, I love talking to photographers. They are usually just insane people, just in my experience, just crazy. So that's always fun. Bronwynne, this is a very serious question. You're a PhD student. This is very serious. I need you to get serious right now. None of your photography artsy insanity with this one, okay? We need to take this seriously. Your reputation is on the line here, Bronwynne Bridges Photography.
I'm nervous. Okay.
If you were a jam, what kind of jam would you be?
Definitely blueberry. Not because I really enjoy the taste the most, but because it has the most antioxidants, as I've learned from my research. So
yeah, you were saying
we're going with blueberry jam.
Yeah, correct. You were saying that you were doing research with regard to blueberries, something to do with Parkinson's. Is that correct? Can you?
Yeah. We did cell culture research using blueberry samples. So use the blueberries, treat the mice and the cells with blueberries, treat them with Parkinson's induced symptoms, and see if it protects the cells, which it does. So eat your blueberries.
That's interesting. Okay, you actually elaborated a fair bit on that. Is there like how okay, here's a question. And it is a part of this. It's still going to be listed as part of this question. But like, because tangents are welcome. You know what I mean? Like starting a conversation is welcome. How did you, was that test original to you? Was it that you were taking part in it? Okay, but like, okay, so you're shaking your head no. Okay. How do these tests come about? Because sometimes it feels, and if this is how it happens, fine and dandy, but it feels like a bunch of people are in a room and they go, let's throw blueberries at it and see what that does. You know what I mean? like oh, it turns out it worked. Yay.
I mean, good question. So my professor in school of pharmacy, Dr. John Weber, he's actually been doing research on this for like 10 years now. The next stage would be to do like a clinical trial, which is kind of how we transitioned into the monitoring system, because we're hoping to use that to monitor the patients who are having blueberries on a clinical trial. That's like down the road. I'm really hoping I won't be here that long, but I would love to see it take place. The blueberry stuff, yeah, he's been doing that for a while now. He's tested a few different fruits and things like that. I know partridge berries was one of them, and sea cucumber extract was another. All very high in antioxidant properties. But if you have wild blueberries from outside, low bush, those are the best. Highly recommend. Eat those. Protects the neurons. So there's like in simple terms, so that everybody would understand, like a protective layer around your neurons, and it disintegrates, which is why the neurons stop firing. And so in your brain, if you're eating the blueberries, it's going to help protect the layer around the neurons, which is then in turn going to help stop the degeneration from occurring.
Wow. Okay. That's unbelievably interesting. So you were saying like treating cells with blueberries. You do not mean that you like poured blueberry jam onto the cells. You mean that like the rats ingested the blueberries. It was not like let's just pour it directly on there.
Yeah, so there was two studies, the cell culture work and the animal culture. And the animal one was like you take a blueberry mash it up and feed it to them. And then the cell culture, same idea. You take the blueberries, you mash it, but in like a micro dose, and you apply it on the cell culture plate and then let it grow over the course of a week or so.
And what were the results with that?
The results were very positive. Yeah, so the cells were protected a lot in most of the studies that we did, and the mouse is just being done now. I think she might have finished the analysis on it, but positive results. I'm not sure if they were significant, so don't quote me on that. I don't believe they were significant in the mouse results, but in the cell culture studies, we've had super promising results, which is why the clinical study would kind of be the next way to go. Yeah,
That's amazing. That's I love science. I
so
love
dark chocolate, wine, and blueberries. That's what you need to make sure you're having every day.
okay, I can do those things. Yeah.
Right.
Darn right I can. I was doing two of them anyway. No, yeah. No, for sure. That's wonderful. I love learning about stuff like this. I got to be more dialed into it because I love science. I hate it in school, which is why I could never do it. But I like learning about it voraciously. I'm probably too dangerous, but I don't go out and preach it. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
like watch my stuff, and I'm subscribed to a lot of like news outlets and science magazines and stuff like that. And every so often, it just gives me this like, oh, that's nice. I
I
remember
know.
there's a few years ago they I've sadly lost some people friends due to Alzheimer's through the years. And there was some research a few years ago that they some crazy breakthrough where they learned that forgetting was an active process.
Mhm.
They before then we've always assumed that remembering's an active process and that forgetting is just failing to remember. But
Right.
it turns out, according to this research, forgetting is also an active process, which means if you can interrupt that process, you can stop yourself from forgetting and stop
Right.
the forget from happening, which is crazy to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that about science. It just kind of gives you an avenue to be like, I had no idea that's what was actually going on, or whoa, that's insane. And that's normally the reaction most people have when they, hopefully, that's the
Yeah.
reaction they have, when they hear about cool science breakthroughs. But as we've learned over the last 2 years, not everybody thinks the same in that department. So
That's frustrating. And there's also people that are innocently in the middle. Like I have a good number of relatives that when I describe to them current accepted science, like in my own way, like someone who's a layman who is moderately science literate, you know what I mean? Who usually explains through metaphor. Like I end up explaining things through metaphor, not through the actual science, because I'm
yeah,
better with metaphor. I'm into lit. But like most of the time my relatives think that I'm talking about science fiction, and I'm like, no, this is currently real. Like,
this is happening.
yes, they can't just clone things. Like, yeah, no, you can actually.
Yeah,
Like they've been doing
you can do a lot
since
of
the
things.
80s. Since the
Yeah,
80s. Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful. Um, Bronwynne, how did you select the name of your business, Bronwynne Bridges Photography?
Wow, I wonder. I took my name and I added what I do at the end of it.
Wait,
Pretty,
is your last name actually Bridges?
it actually is, yeah.
Like Jeff Bridges?
Okay, I know who that is, but no, we're not related.
Okay. All right.
I
All
get
right.
that a lot though. So hence
Uh,
why I now know who it is.
yeah.
But no, not related. My name is actually Bronwyn Bridges. So I've been told my whole life it was a cool name. I figured may as well take advantage of having my cool name out there. Now, mind you, it comes with its cons because a lot of people can't pronounce my name, but that's okay. We learn, we teach how to pronounce my name.
See, okay. But just do me this one thing.
Of
One
course.
thing. And I wish you named your business this, but you didn't, and that's just the way it is. Like if you ever produce offspring, name that child Burning.
Burning bridges.
Yes, yes.
I love it.
Has to be the thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mark that in my mental notes for future children. Got it.
Yeah. Spell it interestingly,
Yeah.
Yeah. Bronwynne, do you read reviews of your business if there are any? And if you have, and if you see any, how do you deal with good ones or bad ones? How do you deal with these, especially as an artist? Like, I know what that's like. You know what I mean?
Definitely. That's a really good question. Seeing as I'm so new at this, I have very limited reviews. So please, if you've ever bought something from me, go review me. But I do have a few good reviews on my page, which are so heartwarming because I love being able to, I mean, it's one thing whenever your friends and family are like, you're doing great. This looks beautiful. I love it. And it's like, are you just saying that because you're trying to be nice to me? I don't know. But when an honest stranger comes up and compliments you or leaves you a nice review, I mean, that just means the world. So I think seeing those is fantastic. A negative review, obviously, right in the moment might sting for a moment, but it's also, it's obviously beneficial because you're going to be able to improve off of what they said. If it was, oh, this wasn't good quality, then okay, I'll change the quality of something, or if they critiqued my landscape or my portrait, I'm hoping it's a way that, I would be able to work on trying that style or trying something different. But I feel like as a photographer, everybody has their own style and everybody is very different in how they shoot and what they shoot. So I don't know if I were to take a negative comment from that, if I would be able to really change my style of shooting. I feel like it would just be more constructive criticism.
That's fair. I've seen as someone in the arts community, I've seen my fair share of weird reviews. Definitely when they start rolling in, don't take them too seriously. People in the arts community have a bad habit of thinking their opinion is factual. People in life have a problem with that, but like the arts is the worst for it because because your opinion is somehow factual. You know what I mean? Like there's no objective truth when it comes to the art. My favorite review, bad review I've ever seen of a local photographer, and I won't name the one, just because it always leads to people going on to find this review, is someone had hired this photographer to go out and shoot a picture of a landscape and wrote a negative review of their business, complaining because they had wanted the photographer to go out to Cape Spear and take a picture of the sunset over the sea.
Okay.
Cape Spear faces east. And they were very upset that the person interpreted this as taking the sunrise. It's like, no, I want the sunset over the sea. And I'm like, that's physically impossible.
Yeah.
Stop. Self-emulate yourself. Like, yeah. Like
yeah,
people,
that's brutal.
Yeah. Very angry. That review stays up where it's like, why I asked this photographer to take a picture of a sunrise on the west. What's the problem here? And I'm like,
right. What is the problem here?
Yes. Education system is the problem here.
Yeah. Accurate.
Bronwynne, does your work at your table, Bronwynne Bridges Photography at St. John's Farmers Market, energize you or does it exhaust you? At the end of a market day, are you pumped up and ready to party and ready to have fun, or are you just emotionally drained and ready to do something that you do when you're emotionally drained?
That's a really good question. If you were to ask me at, noon and you were to ask me at 4, I may have very different answers to that question. Not a morning person, so getting up that early is not fun for me.
It must be horrible when you're paired next to that horrible author vendor who dances in the morning.
There's like book guy who's, yeah.
He's such a morning person. It's the worst.
He's such a morning person, but you know what? It is energizing to be around people like that. I think that definitely helps the markets go by faster. Uh, yeah, because if not, it is very, very slow, and the hours do feel very long. So I'm glad. I love having people who are just thriving and love the mornings. Maybe they'll influence me one day to be able to get up earlier.
Yep. I like getting up early. Getting up early is
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
not a thing.
Bronwynne, what does success for your art look like to you? Every artist I know has a like goal in mind. You said you're not in-game focused, but are you goal focused? What does success look like?
It's a good question. I would say happy clients in the portrait world for sure. Having those positive reviews and positive experiences with clients is success to me in the portrait state, especially if I'm posting like on social media a picture of a portrait session that I took and it gets shared around. That makes me feel like, oh, people liked this. Obviously they're showing everybody that they know, which is great. In the world of landscape, without saying sales, semi-sales, I was told right off the beginning, people struggle to sell canvases. Like, I wouldn't go for canvases. People don't really always like having canvases hung up. And I was just like, heck with it. I'm going to try it anyways.
Yep.
That's just who I am. And people have been buying the canvases left, right, and center, which makes me so happy and feels like, okay, this person wants to have my picture hung on their wall to look at every single day for
Yep.
unknown amounts of time. So I think to me, success in my landscape photography is definitely selling canvases, because knowing that you're going to walk around the corner or you're going to go into the bathroom and you're going to be like sitting there looking at my wonderful photo. I'm like, you know what? I love that.
Yeah, and in the arts community everywhere, but definitely locally, there is a little bit of that very well-intentioned advice, but like it comes with a bit of protection of the person's own ego, where it's like someone comes up to you and says, oh, be careful, just for your own edification, people don't buy landscape photography. And then it turns out a lot of people buy your landscape photography. And
Right.
we get like, we'll get it locally where people will come up and be like, oh, just so you know, people don't buy novellas. And then people buy a boat ton of novellas. And what you end up learning is like, is it that people don't buy novellas, or that they don't buy your novellas? Maybe the format's not the problem here.
Right. So I think that's been a big learning curve, is just not really listening to what worked and what didn't work for other people, because that's probably not what's going to work or not work for myself.
Yeah,
So I think that's definitely been a learning factor for sure.
for sure. And landscapes definitely. Like it's this, like I would love, especially during the pandemic when you did this, you know what I mean? Like when I can't leave and go view a sunset off Cape Sear, I would love to have like a portrait, like or a big landscape of a sunset in Cape Spear. Excellent. Come on.
Yeah, my living room is like, is that bad that I have my own pictures hanging in my own house? I don't know.
No. Why would that be bad?
Because
My
you walk
God.
in my living room and it's like Brown Bridges photography threw up in here.
Is it threw up? Wow. Is it bad that I have my own books on the bookshelf? No, of course not. Bronwyn, if you could tell your younger artist self any one thing, like if you could had the ability to go back in time for just 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and whisper something in your younger artist self's ear, what would you do?
That's a good question. I would say not to let outside influence in, because as much as people may have ideas on creative, especially in the portrait world, like, oh, try this and do this, I just go out there and I like to have fun. And I'm very much a candid portrait photographer. Like, when I do weddings, it's very rarely, the stiff. We all stand there and pretend like we love each other. It's like the laughing during the dancing and stuff like that. And I think that by not letting other people influence my style, I've been able to stick to what I actually love. So I think, yeah, not letting. I would tell myself not to let in all the The outside voices, because although they may seem helpful at the time, they can also just totally push you into the wrong path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't let
Absolutely.
anybody tell you can't do it, because I was out here and people were like, you're gonna what? And now I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, I am. Watch me.
One thing I say over and over again, it's one of my mantras, is when people say you can't do something, what they mean is they can't do it, and they
Yeah.
don't want to admit that you can do something they can't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and whisper something in your ear as a young PhD student, what would it be?
Laughter.
Laughter.
That's a good question. Truthfully, I would go back and I would the reason I laughed in the beginning, to be honest, the reason I laughed is because when I was done school the first time, I have always been I'm a pretty smart person. I haven't really studied, which I've been super grateful. I've just kind of been, okay, well off in the school field of things. So when I went to my undergrad and my marks dropped and I was panicked, and then they went back up eventually again, but moving to a new town by myself and everything obviously has the influence of going to post-secondary. But I was like, yeah, I'm definitely done school. I'm never going back to school again. And I was like, I just want to be able to get a job and work like a normal human. Like, I'm so over this. Then I got denied to a bunch of schools. I decided I was going to do my master's in pharmacy, which is how I came here. And I was like, I'm so excited to be done. Like, the day could not come any sooner that I will graduate and I will get a real person job. Let's do it. And now here I am doing a PhD. Like, honestly, I don't even understand, but I am very happy with the outcome of it all. But if somebody were to ask me if I was doing this years ago, oh, absolutely not. I was like, no, I'm so over school. And to say that I'm not over school now may also be a slight lie. But what I'm doing, I don't really feel like is school. Like, I'm not sitting down every single day studying 8 to 5, so it's refreshing to be able to be out there working alongside actual patients and making a difference. So what I would tell myself back in the day, early PhD student, to not give up on what I believe in, because I think that even the smallest voice can make a difference in the world. So like I said, not many people know that about me. But that's kind of the goal, is to build up something big and then be an element of surprise with how hard I've worked over the years.
Okay. I like it. I like this a lot. Bronwynne, what is a product that you have stopped featuring with Bronwynne Bridges Photography, and why?
Stopped featuring. Good question. Not really anything. Unless I've run out of something, I haven't not featured something.
In that case, yeah, running out of it's a good reason. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Bronwynne, what is an early experience you had when you learned that language has power, or can have power, if you did learn that?
Language has power. That's a good question. Give me an example here.
This one is ported over. All these questions are kind of adapted from my other show where I talk to authors. So with those, it's about like written word and stuff, because we use language. With this, it's more the way that language can affect people when you're talking to them at the table, your choice of words, that kind of thing, talking to patients that you're involved in the study with, stuff like that. But we can skip it if you want, but it's more like thinking about how it's applicable to the business, the words we use, the way we choose to describe certain objects, that like stuff like that.
Gotcha. I would say I learned language has power whenever I was started doing portrait photography, because I feel like I've always been the person behind, or in front of the camera. Growing up, I was always the person who was getting my pictures taken by a wonderful photographer back home, which I feel like she was also a major influence on why I started doing portrait photography in general. But I think language has power in the sense that I learned when I was out there with one of my friends just playing around, and she was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I have no idea what to do in front of the camera. and being able to just talk her through things and show her things and tell her that she looked as amazing as I thought she did. And she didn't believe me until she saw the photos. And she's like, I've never looked this good in front of a camera. I think that having the language to be able to, you know, influence somebody to feel good about themselves. I think that was definitely when I learned that the language I use in when taking portraits is so incredibly important to make somebody feel confident and comfortable in front of a camera.
That makes sense. I love that. That's wonderful. Knowing like the impact that that language can have on someone's
Yeah.
self-esteem like that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Um okay. Bronwyn, what is your work kryptonite? So whether with regard to Bridges photography, if you're trying to get things done and X thing happens, the work is over. Like it's just ended it. What is the thing that'll mess it up and make the work end for the day?
School. I'm always in the middle of doing something photo wise and then school. So tonight I was like, okay, I have these part of doing the food shoots. I don't actually have to send them the photos. So I send them off to an editor. I don't edit them myself either. An editor edits those ones, sends them off to DoorDash. They have their own private editor, which is fine. But on the side, I obviously have all my original photos. So whenever I go to these places, I'm like, if you don't hear from them or you hear from them and they have like a big logo right across the middle that says DoorDash, like you can contact me individually and I can just do it out of the kindness of my heart. I don't care. But obviously that is time pending because like my life is a little bit overwhelming. So it may take me like a week or two to kind of get back some photos. So my plan was this evening, I was going to get one of those photo shoots done. And then all of a sudden, throw the wrench in there. I actually got selected as a semifinalist for it's called the Mel Woodward Cup at Memorial, which is a entrepreneurship cup. So it's a big competition, and got a phone call last night that I have the interview this evening for the finals. So that was my wrench in that. And now I'm not getting those done this evening once again.
Amazing. Okay. Now I have to ask, and I wonder if it's the opposite answer. What's your work kryptonite when it comes to your PhD work?
Procrastination.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just like when I have so much to do, I don't want to do anything. I'm like, you know what, my room needs to be cleaned right now. Like that's totally taking priority for sure.
Yeah.
So I definitely think in my photography, it's my schoolwork, but in my schoolwork, it's just like procrastination of not wanting to do schoolwork for sure.
So is it a case of like if you could control the procrastination, which would get the schoolwork under control, then it wouldn't interrupt the artwork so much?
I would think so. I would think, but then again, the school stuff is just so sporadic, and I'll get random calls for meetings or random things pop up and last minute. So it may work to an extent, but it may not fully work.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send you my bill for the therapy. It's fine. It's fine.
Amazing.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. For all of you listening, we'll be here the same time next week to talk more about business culture in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Be sure to drop by and visit our guests and all the other vendors at the St. John's Farmers Market this week.